In a Spring, ultimately, we are trying to, again, repeat the same story what we have done yesterday, has a relationship. So what is the problem statement? Okay, so we need to understand the problem statement, that why we are going to use a Spring framework, and then why it was invented. And then we have a proper use case that, okay, these are the places that we can use Spring and why it was so popular. So let's take again the same example. Let's say let's write down some of the concept. Okay, let's say IOC, DI, Spring Bean. Okay, so mainly what is the definition of the Spring framework? The definition of the Spring framework is IOC based dependency injection lightweight framework. Okay, so wherever you search on Google, you will find similar kind of definitions everywhere. So we need to understand what is IOC and DI. Okay, so very standard interview questions. If somebody start swing interview question, then they will start with these two things. And these are the design patterns. Okay, so let's say we have Toyota, then you do T dot set number plate, then maybe a couple of more setters. Then we need engine. Let's say Toyota needs engine. Toyota has engine. So what you're going to do? You create engine object. You set some property E dot set type of engine or whatever. And then ultimately what you're going to do, you will do T dot set engine and E. Okay. Anybody has any issue in this code? If you don't understand what we are doing here. In this code, anybody has question? Very simple, right? No question. Okay, so now what is our aim? This line is called DI, dependency injection. And this line also you can say DI. I'm not saying only this line. Here you are just setting a string. That's why you never understand that what is going on here. Here you are setting engine. That's why it's coming out more. So what does it mean? Dependency injection. That Toyota is depend on engine. Engine is another object. So you are injection, right? Injecting engine into Toyota. So you're giving engine to Toyota. That's called dependency injection. Why? Because Toyota is dependent on engine. Okay, so this is called DI. Now the whole game is based on IOC. IOC based dependency injection. What we need to understand? Not only dependency injection, but we need to understand IOC based. The definition of the Spring framework is saying it's IOC based dependency injection. So IOC is inversion of control. Okay, so now we do IOC. Again, same story repeat. Spring container. Same like Tomcat container, Hibernate container. We are giving input as an XML file or purely annotations base, whatever, but at least you are giving input to container. Okay, so rather than you write this code, framework will write the code, framework will create an object for you and then satisfy this dependency. So now what we are doing, we are giving a control away from ourselves and giving this control back to framework. So you are not going to write much code, rather framework is performing something for you and that is proven. Okay, so now, and that's why some of the things might come into the picture. I'll come to beans also. So, okay, how many Toyota objects I need to create? Okay, how many engine objects I need to create? Let's say now again I'm creating say Toyota, another Toyota, right? T1 is equal to, there could be many Toyota. And then again setting the property. So for T1.set engine, right? So I need to do again the same engine. Now think both Toyota cannot have the same engine. Right? Two cars does not have the same engine. They have the different engine. Yes, obviously type is engine. Okay, you say the engine only. Again, you have to understand type. What is type in Java? Not only Java, in any language. What is type? Right? So this is type. This is reference, and this is object. Type means class. When you create a new class in Java, that means you're creating a new type. So at the end of the day, what we need to understand that how many engine object you need? If there are two Toyota, then you need two Toyota object. You cannot even use same Toyota. You need two engine object. So how Spring Framework will follow your instructions? And that's where basically we learned yesterday. I told you to go through this block, singleton design pattern. Singleton means if any class has only one object, you cannot create more than one object. Main prerequisite is private constructor. If that page, the block, there are 8 to 9 points, right? How to break the singleton, lazy, there is a lazy and eager creation of the object. There is a serialization is also coming to the picture. Multi-threading is also coming to the picture. So if that page, you are 100%, if I ask any question, you are able to write a code, then definitely you will get a job. Write down how many things are coming into the picture in that page. Serialization, synchronization, right? The thread part of the thread, and then lazy eager loading, and singleton pattern itself is there. Object creation is coming. So that page is very important. That blog is very, very important. Okay, so now this example will come, like we'll discuss and then like see how it works. What is Spring Bean? Okay, Spring Bean basically not a good, I cannot draw well, but as a Spring Bean, coffee bean is look like this. So it's coffee bean coming from the coffee bean. And then whenever you say, okay, this class, I want Spring to manage what creation of an object, but that doesn't mean that you cannot write this code. Okay, once you tell Spring by that, okay, hey, manage this class creation of object and manage the dependencies, then that become Spring Bean. Okay, so don't be confused. Okay, so we learn Java beans in the JSP. What is beans? It's simple setter getter methods. So this is Spring Beans. Okay, so on top of that, like I have put some PPT for the Spring framework. Earlier Spring, we were using EJB Enterprise Java Beans. Okay, so Enterprise Java Beans was like at that time around 2003. So EJB was popular because there was only one option for the enterprise application to be developed. There was no other options like transition management and like all different things. It was the popular framework, but there were some problems with the EJB. Okay, so it will come here later. You can compare. This is just a theory. Okay, so these are the problems with the EJB. And because of those problems, productivity was less. Ultimately, the problem was less productivity. And because and this guy thought, Rod Johnson and Waller, that they can create a new framework which is very easy. And that's why in 2002, 2003, Spring 1.0 invented. I think Spring 6, 5 point something we are using right now in our code. So maybe 6 might coming or already out. We need to check. So for now, somebody asks you which version you are using, you can say Spring 5. That is fair enough answer. So some of the advantages, like you can see the later advantages. So one of the advantages very popular was that you are not going to implement or extend any class or interfaces which with respect to like from the Spring framework. So tomorrow you want to change the framework, it will be very easy. In the EJB, it was very tightly coupled with the framework itself. And that was the main disadvantage. So just read it. You already have this access to this one, POJO-driven approach and everything. So there are 7 modules mainly in the Spring. We are going to start with the core. So what is the Spring Bean, creation of the objects, everything comes under this diagram, core engine, core container, beans, core, context, expression language. So we are going to cover mainly beans and core, a little context. Then maybe today or to our next lecture, we are going to focus on two things. One is servlet, how you're going to use Spring inside servlet, and second, Spring Web itself. So Spring has written servlet itself. Spring is written servlet and give it to us. So we are not going to write any servlet in that application. So this is the main thing, Spring MVC. So Spring MVC and Spring inside servlet. Okay, so two approaches we're going to see. And here, obviously ORM, like how you gonna connect with Spring and Hibernate together. Spring Hibernate, how you can basically gel together and you can work together, those two framework in one project, because that is how the framework has been created in industry with the Spring and Hibernate. AOP, we are not going to focus now. If you want to learn by yourself, it's very easy, Aspect J programming. But mainly, if these fundamentals are clear, you can do that too. This definition, what is dependencyation, we already learned. This example, no need to go. Okay, so okay, let's look at the code and then we'll come back here. So that will be easy for us. Okay, so let's start with pom.xml. Okay, so in pom.xml, you might notice this. There are a few things we have added, like dependency Spring Core, Web, and Web MVC. Some of the dependencies we have added here, so there is no more change required here. You can add some other, like if you don't want to add Web and Web MVC in the normal Java project, definitely you have to add some additional library, but to make it very simplify in two project, I have just put these three. The first change here. Second thing, if you open source main resources, I have put couple of XML files, which are Spring configuration files. So let's open this hello world program. Okay, so first, let's try to understand with simple XML way, like all three ways, hello world. So let me just comment out the config one. Okay, so if you see in the beans.xml, we have defined bean. Okay, so this bean is you are defining, like say ID and then class. Same like in sublet, we are defining that what is your sublet class and what is the name of the sublet. So internally containers, sublet container is creating an object for us, and it was managing those objects, and that's why there is a life cycle. And here also the Spring framework is managing your object, and that's why there will be a life cycle of an object in the Spring too. So this is a simple way you define the Spring class, and you say that, okay, hey Spring, manage this my class as a bean. So now this class is become a Spring bean. Okay, so this is the interpretation. Now let's look at the code. Okay, so we load this file same like in Hibernate. Every framework has a different way to load it. So here there are different ways. Let's say class, path, application, context. Okay, so first of all, let's look at what is application context. So there are a couple of things we need to learn here in this code. Okay, so same like in Hibernate, there was a session factory. Here there is an application context. So let's look at the hierarchy. So this is the hierarchy of application context. So earlier when Spring was invented, there was a bin factory, only bin factory. Bin factory means same like session factory. So it's a factory of an object. So it will create an object for us. Same like session factory is creating an object of session for us. Here, this is any object. This factory is for any object which you are declaring your class as a Spring Bean. So now later stages, okay, so bin factory is an interface, parent interface, and this is application context is a child interface. So application context has some additional features and functionalities those bin factory does not have. So this they have written, I have written maybe some, I copied some diagram somewhere, but you can most of the time bin factory is deprecated now. Okay, so if you write bin factory b is equal to new bin factory or something, but it is deprecated. So most of the time every time we are going to use application context. So ways to create application context. This is a code bin factory, how you can create bin factory, but this is deprecated. So we are going to go with application context way. This one is written already in our code. If you look at this, these two I already use. Class path application context, annotation config application. This one similar way, but if you want to load file from different source, like from file system or XML base, but this one is sufficient. Okay, so this is what the meaning of this line. You load the XML file, all the configuration in the memory. Now let's look at this context.getBin. You ask Spring, hey, give me this object. Context.getBin, you say, okay, hello world. Same like in servlet, you're giving a name, here you have to give an ID. And this class, it will give you hello world bin. So you can give any name, okay? I've just given any name. And then hello world, now you get the object. Now it's up to you what you want to do. Again, you are asking, give me the object. Okay, Spring is giving you the object. Now compare it. Let's see what is the output coming. Okay, both are equals. Okay, so by default, what is happening? By default, Spring is singleton. The configuration for the Spring in terms of the object creation, it is singleton. I mean, Spring will give you the same object. If you ask Spring, hey, give me the object of this bin or this class, Spring will give you the same object. I'm not giving similar, same object, one object only. Now you might think, I have a problem. I have two Toyota, two engine, then what? Right, so we'll solve that later. Okay, so scope and wiring. Okay, so there are two concepts, different scopes and wiring. So at the time it will be more clear. Okay, so this is the first way for the hello world. It is printing hello world, hello Spring. Now what is the second way? Similar way, like you are loading the XML file, but in XML file there are two other things like annotation base. Now you don't need this. No bin you are going to define here, rather you are going to define here at the red component. So this one line is replacement of this XML configuration that you say, okay, bin hello world ID. By default ID would be whatever the class name, the first letter, it will make it small. And then that would be the key here, hello world. So at that component is a stereotype. A stereotype means it's an annotations. Annotation, there are a few annotations we are going to learn at that component, at that service, at that controller, at that trace controller, at that repository. So there are 5 to 6 annotations we need to learn later. The main important part here is at that component is registering your class as a Spring Bean. As simple as that. Now let's go back and run our code. Okay, we are loading the same thing. Same code, same output. Now final way, in order to create a Spring Bean annotation config application context. So there is no XML configuration at all in your application. So if you look at in the end, we are going to see Spring Boot microservice architecture. In that one, there is no XML concepts. And that is what industry wants. So we are going to create one config class. And in this one, you declare what is the bin name, and then you return the object. Now, if you come back here, we don't need any XML file. We're just going to load config class, and let's try to see what is the output coming. Same output. Okay, so this is 3-way in the Spring that you can create beans and manage it. So it's simple hello world. So anybody has any question here? And the same code has been given. I think somebody of most of you have tried to write on our blog this Spring hello world with 3 different XML. The code is also attached here. Any question? Okay, so now next we are going to see the next example, Toyota and engine. So now let me just comment out some of the code which is not required for now. Okay, so let's look at the same example which we have started understanding this topic, Toyota and engine. So let's say Toyota, we have defining at the rate component. Then Toyota has engine. Okay, so let me just make this change first. So sorry, Toyota has engine, and what? Let's see the engine here. So engine is also a Spring component. Means Spring Bean, Spring Managed Bean. So there are two classes basically, Toyota and engine. Both are Spring managed. Both are at the rate component we have defined here. Now let's look at the code, how we are going to get the object. As I mentioned earlier that you can create an object using XML configuration. So I have just kept this as it is. If you want to do this way, now onwards, we are not going to follow this way. We are going to go with annotations most of the time. But this is for your knowledge that there is a way that you can configure the bin in XML file. And this one we have to define, this is must because, and that's why basically Spring is scanning all these our annotations at that component and all other annotations because of this configuration. So now let's go back to the code. Again, the same story. I have another file now, application context.xml. Now you will ask context.Toyota get bin. Now you see like Toyota dot get engine, and you do start engine. So let's run this code and see what is happening right now. There is no issue. Engine is starting. Like if this is null, let's say Toyota dot get engine, then it would have been thrown null pointer exception. But now Toyota has already engine. You ask just Toyota from the Spring framework, but Toyota is filled with engine. So let's look at what is magic here. There is no magic at all. You just say auto wired. So in this auto wired is DI. Okay, so wiring. In the Spring, there is a wiring. there are different types of wiring by name, by type, or by constructor and auto detect. Okay, so there are 4 type of wiring. Interview questions. If somebody asks you what are the different type of wiring, how Spring is achieving the dependency injection, then using auto wire. So whenever I was mentioning initially the dependency injection, the concept was, main concept is IOC based dependency injection. So framework is injecting this object, but provided, what is the condition that this has to be a Spring bean? Okay, what is this? How Spring find out that I have some Spring, some bean is registered with what, right? That is the important thing, and that is the reason that first thing is by name, wiring by name. So whatever the property name engine you have given, Spring will find if I have any bean which registered with the ID engine, then it will wired. Wired means injected here. And yes, we have right now, right, at that component, and then this is registered as E, key small engine. And that is the reason that when we run this code, Toyota.get engine .start engine, this is not giving us an error. Okay, so now let's go back to the code in Toyota. Okay, I'm changing the property name from engine to engine 1. Okay, so let's run the code. Still it's working. Okay, then now what is happening behind the scene? Engine 1, there is no bean is registered with name engine 1. In current situation, if you look at my code, there is none of the bean registered with the ID engine 1, and still code is working. The reason is that first Spring will try by name. If it doesn't find, it will try by type. Okay, the type is engine. Again, answer is instance of. What Spring is doing internally, it will do compare. Let's say any object in the Spring, any bean which is registered, which has a type engine. Yes, right now we have this, then wire it, and that's why our code is working. So by name, by type. Third thing is constructor. So I have this constructor. So if you put auto wired instead of here, put auto wired here, and then all these constructor properties, if any bean is registered, same in constructor also the same tactics, by name, by type. So Spring will wire it. Okay, try it. So wiring is very important concept. In our PPT also, we have some description type of wiring and what exactly it is doing. If you want to read from PPT. Okay, so now I have another, let me create another object, another class which extends engine. Okay, so now let's run this code. Okay, so now what is the error? Let's see. No qualifying bean of type com MiIT Spring demo engine available. Expected single matching bean but found 2 engine and Toyota engine. Ambiguity, diamond problem. This is not actually diamond problem, but ambiguity. So what is ambiguity here? Spring is trying to find object by name first, but no luck. Then it will go by type. When Spring is trying to do instance of, it finds 2. One is engine itself, and second is that all the child. Right now we have one child of engine, right? Toyota engine. Instance of is getting true, right, for the child, and that is why we are using instance of. So it find two. The Spring does not use smartness here. Why? Because Spring doesn't know which one you want to use. So we have to be verbose. Verbose means very specific. If this kind of issues are coming, then you have to fix it. Go properly by type, by name. If you cannot manage by type, then 100% you have to go by name. Okay, so this is a Spring. This kind of problems might occur whenever you start working on bigger applications. Please try to read console so you understand. Our biggest problem is that we don't open the console. We are afraid clicking on a console and scroll it up and down and then read the error and try to understand. So we don't know the problem and we always try to find out a solution. And that is the biggest problem, that we don't know what is the problem and we are trying to find out a solution. And that is always wasting your time. So first try to locate the problem and then solve it. So this is wiring. Now scoping. Okay, so first time I asked, give me Toyota. It has given Toyota. Again, I'm asking, give me Toyota, another Toyota. Okay, it has given a Toyota. Let's comment out that code and then we can move on, because now I don't need this. Was just an example point of view. So both are equals. Okay, here both are equals means let's say both Toyota are equal and both engines are equals. And that is not what we want. We want Toyota to be created every time. So there are, when you define a bean, here there is one annotation, scope. So there are 5 scopes: singleton, prototype, request, session, and global session. There are 5 scopes. All 5 are mentioned in the PPT. Singleton means only one object will be created, and that is what is happening right now, and that is what we want to solve. Prototype means when you ask Spring Framework, hey, give me the object, Spring will give you the object, new object. Whenever you write context.getBean, it will give you the new object. Request, again, let's go back to the servlet. Throughout the one request, Spring will give you one object. Next, new request, new object. Session, new session, new object. Means every session you are going to get new object if your scope of your bean is session based on session ID, and request based on request ID. Global session, we are not going to cover this one as a part of this course. It's a portlet session, so there are multiple portlets applications are there at the time this being used, but for now no need to worry. So when you put prototype here, let's look at what is happening. You see only engines are equal. This doesn't print. Now both Toyotas are different, but engines are still same. Two Toyota, two same engine, that's not good. Let's go to engine now. Put a scope here too. Run it again. Both engines are different, Toyotas are different. Another example, when you're developing any application, registration page, registration bean must be prototype. You cannot put a singleton. Otherwise, if you're doing registration, I am doing registration, or many people are doing registration on the application, then it's the same object. So we can interchange the data on the same object, and then we don't know which object will be inserted in our while we are creating a registration. Okay, so this scoping and wiring, and this is very basic about dependency injection, IOC.